What's up, everybody? Ryan Michael Ballo here to talk about the topic of taking nootropics every day. This is an important topic, of course, because for a lot of us that like nootropics and recognize the benefits of nootropics and would really rather not have brain function different than the brain function that we get when taking nootropics, this is an important question. We've talked about cycling before, and I still believe you should cycle. So essentially the answer to should you take nootropics every day I think the answer is yes, you could take nootropics every day, but what we're going to talk about is sort of just cycling between stacks. When we talked about cycling in the 3 main reasons to cycle video, we talked about specific reasons for specific compounds. We talked about adrafenil and its anecdotal reports of liver toxicity via raising liver enzymes in some patients who actually took adrafenil, went and got blood work, and saw elevated liver enzymes as a result of that. Side note, anecdote for me, I got blood testing, it was like 2.5 weeks ago, and in the previous 5 days, I took adrafenil twice, and my liver enzymes were not elevated. So, you know, I have, for me at least, verifiable proof that it didn't raise my liver enzymes. Now, I was only taking it for, a couple days at that time, a few days prior, and so who knows how that affects the results. But we also talked about in that video on cycling, we talked about how it could stifle your creativity because a lot of the focused nootropics sort of make you think very fast. I mean, nootropics in general kind of make you think pretty quickly, and that fast level of thinking sometimes is detrimental to your creative thinking. So that's so that's one thing. And then we talked about a couple other things, and I think that cycling nootropics is still important, but I think that what I've come to understand, and what I kind of do these days is, I actually do take nootropics every day because I actually consider caffeine to be a nootropic. Now, I'm fully on board with the idea of caffeine being a nootropic. It just is. But I cycle between stacks. So the question of can you take nootropics every day? I think my surface level answer would be yes, you can take nootropics every day. But I would say that you should cycle between different stacks. So let me give you an example. I cycle between a variety of different stacks, right? I'll take adrafenil one day, very minimally these days. I don't really like the afenils all that much. It's just like if I need that extra wakefulness, then the afenils would be a good choice. But I don't want to rely on the afenils because they're pretty powerful, especially modafinil. And adrafenil, I mean, to me, if you take the equivalent to modafinil quantity in adrafenil, I mean, it's like the same thing to me. I don't really notice a difference between the two of them, and I've tried both now. So there's that. But then I cycle between very minimally adrafenil and or modafinil. Cortex Gen 2 at this point is like mostly my everyday stack as I'm trying to finish it and make it perfect for the launch of the Gen 2 product, which will be soon enough. I can't give you a date, but it's gonna be soon enough, guys. It's gonna be epic for those of you who tried Gen 1 and love it and just love the stack and are into the stack. So I cycle between that, another stack of alpha GPC, Alcar, caffeine, and theanine, and sometimes I'll cut the alpha GPC out of that stack and just do caffeine, theanine, Alcar, which is a really awesome stack. And then sometimes I'll cut the Alcar out and just do caffeine, theanine, and just roll with that. I'll just up my caffeine intake a little bit that day so that I have more wakefulness and thus a little faster brain processing, a little more performance going on, etc. And theanine always gives me performance benefits and functional benefits. I know I have a better focus capacity with theanine for sure. We know clinically it induces alpha brain waves in the brain and helps you to feel a lot more calm. So I can focus, quite a bit more with L-theanine, and I'm calmer. It's almost like, partially meditated. Combining theanine with meditation is actually really cool for me. So I cycle between those stacks. And so do I take nootropics every day? The answer is yes, but I'm not taking the same nootropics every day. And I think that's where we should sort of differentiate that question. Do you take nootropics every day? It's kind of a vague question, right? It's really not a detailed question. It's not a specific question. Do you take different nootropics every day? Yes, and is that safe? I would say so. My idea of safe nootropic to take every day would be uridine monophosphate, CDP choline, Alcar, caffeine for sure, theanine, and alpha GPC. Those are nootropics that I think you could safely take every day, so long as you understand what to do in response to those nootropics. I mean, if you're gonna take caffeine every day, you should probably take some theanine so you don't get worked up. If you're gonna take CDP choline and/or uridine, they accelerate the usage of B9, so you want to make sure you're getting vitamin B9 and B12 in your diet. If you're going to take acetyl L-carnitine, well, there's really, I mean, to me, there really just doesn't seem to be anything related to acetyl L-carnitine that you should take to sort of mitigate some sort of acceleration of a vitamin or depletion of something. I mean, everything about acetyl L-carnitine is awesome. So I would just say acetyl L-carnitine, you can take every day. L-carnitine is one of the best nootropics there is. I take these days. I can't think in the last 3 weeks of a day where I haven't taken Alcar. I mean, I take it every day. It's wonderful. And I notice the difference. Brain energy, faster processing. I feel better. I have overall more energy. Sorry about the camera. I'm trying to hold it up with this selfie stick here. And it's just epic. Alpha GPC, I think you can take it every day. But again, you have to think about things like the creation of the neurotransmitter that it builds, acetylcholine, requires that you have sufficient B5, vitamin B5. Now, for a lot of people, it's not going to be a problem because you get it in your diet. You're not going to run out of B5, right? Body has little sort of fail-safes to make sure you have enough of it and it gets enough from food. But if you've got some sort of weird thing where you can't get enough B5, or you're not eating enough B5, you're not eating whatever foods it might come in, you're not supplementing with it, and or you can't absorb your supplements, that might be something to think about if you're going to take alpha GPC every day. So those things I think are safe considering what you might want to do. If you're going to take caffeine every day in powder form, you probably want to take some theanine because it might make you a little anxious if you take too much of it. The same is true for a bunch of other stuff. When it comes to some of the racetams, I've had sort of differing views on this, but my views are, I guess it's generally the same. When it comes to the racetams, I actually believe that Aniracetam is probably safe to take long term. And by long term, I mean, you could probably take Aniracetam every day. I know people who do. There are people who report that they do. It seems to be okay. Would I take Aniracetam every day? I probably wouldn't, because the acceleration of the usage of acetylcholine requires, for some people, constant replenishment of acetylcholine, and for some people, they're not going to get that via food sources of choline, the B vitamin, the complex B, that'll convert to acetylcholine, like eggs and beef and liver and whatever, fish, other things, soy. So they're going to need to take supplemental forms, synthetic forms of choline, which is totally fine. But that also requires that you have your dose very clear and very specific, the quantity, the type of choline source, whether it's alpha GPC, CDP choline, choline bitartrate, choline citrate, or other. You're going to have that down and perfect. And so it's a little more high maintenance. So again, I think that one could take Aniracetam every day and not have any negative side effects, and maybe have some maybe have some anxiety, or maybe have something, but I mean, it's not going to be horrible for you, and it's far better than the 2 glasses of whatever beer, name your favorite beer, you're going to drink every day. It's probably better for your liver and better for the bacteria in your gut. I mean, it's probably better than things that people do every day and still live to 100. I mean, so we really have to look at it from that perspective comparatively to determine the safety of something. We did a podcast and an article about the long-term safety of nootropics. Google that and Live Cortex. Read the article. Listen to the podcast. It's 2 different things. It's an article and a podcast where we kind of lay that out. We compare Aniracetam to ethanol effectively, and I think that's pretty important. So there's that. Other racetams, Oxy Racetam, for example, I'm not entirely sure that one could take Oxy Racetam every day. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe they can. But Oxy Racetam, it has glutamate and acetylcholine receptor modulation properties, and it probably uses more acetylcholine than you would normally use. So you got to take it with a choline source, and there's that. But it's a different effect than Aniracetam. It's much more focus-inducing, and we really don't have any studies pointing to the efficacy, the safety liver-wise of taking Oxy Racetam consistently. We just don't know. And if I'm wrong about that, please bring that study to my attention. I'll thoroughly read it and change my perspective on that, but I haven't come across one yet. And I think I've tried to research it. So I would say, doesn't mean don't take Oxy Racetam. I would just say cycling off of Oxy Racetam is probably a good idea. And like I've come to say, like I understand, and like I said before, and I've said, and my stance is still, you should cycle off of essentially everything. Just doesn't mean you don't have to take nootropics every day, because you could still take nootropics every day, like me, where I got Cortex one day, Cortex Gen 2 another day. Maybe I'll just do uridine one day or triacetyl uridine one day. You know, then I'll do my alpha GPC, Alcar, caffeine theanine stack, and then take out the GPC, then take out the Alcar and stick with caffeine theanine. I'm cycling off of basically everything. I think the only, at this stage in my usage of nootropics, the only nutrient, the only chemicals I do not cycle off of are caffeine and theanine. They are in every one of my stacks every day without exception. And, you know, like I said before, last 3 weeks, Alcar has been too. But you know, I take Alcar out every now and then, caffeine and theanine every single day. And I totally think that's, you know, 100% safe to do. And that's a great stack. You know, it's a great nootropic stack. It's a nootropic stack. So I think that's useful. So modafinil, I think you should cycle. Adrafinil, I think you should cycle. And whether or not there's liver enzymes that become elevated as a result of taking any of the aphenols, you still should cycle it. I just think anecdotally, you should cycle it. You know, I think that it makes a lot of changes on brain chemistry. And for some people who are prone to panic attacks and anxiety, that's going to sort of facilitate anxiety via the release of catecholamine neurotransmitters. You know, I'm pretty sure that happens after reading this detailed paper on the mechanisms of the aphenols. And then there are a little bit, you know, there are some freakish long-term studies or studies on rodents with, and I actually think one human study, if I can remember correctly. Let me see if I can find that and source it. Of modafinil, where we're taking it long term induce some sort of facial muscle spasm in people, and so, you know, that's potentially just something to look out for. But I mean, again, if you drink up half a bottle of scotch every day, you're going to get liver cancer, or you know, or whatever thing. You know, you're eventually going to have some health problems, probably, right? And so it's all about moderation, and that doesn't mean that modafinil is horrible, because it's great. You know, modafinil is great for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. I just think cycling wisely is smart. Can you take modafinil every day? Some people have, and maybe you could, and maybe you'd be fine. But I wouldn't. I wouldn't take modafinil every day. I would spread it out, take it once or twice. I mean, you 3 times a week, and then, you know, cycle off. You want to have the ability to take other nootropics that create the same effect. We did a video on uridine, CDP, caffeine, and Alcar together in specific doses, where if you get your dose right, it's kind of like modafinil, right? And a lot safer, and, you know, and a lot less side effects, and just pretty awesome. So when it comes to some of the other racetams, Faciracetam, phenylpiracetam, I think you should cycle those as well. And you know, that's essentially it. Use your judgment, but take the basic principle I'm trying to get across here is that I think, yes, you can take nootropics every day, but I think you should just cycle the kinds of nootropics. Do alpha GPC, Alcar, theanine one day, you know, do ashwagandha and CDP choline one day, do, you know, Cortex, you know, one day. I try to build the Cortex stack so you can take it 3-4 times a day. We actually write on the website, cycle off and come back on, cycle off, come back on. And we're going to be building, by the way, probably 2 versions of the stack to fix that problem on Gen 2. Gen 2 is probably going to be an intense version, very, very intense version of Cortex, and then an everyday version of Cortex that you can just take every day and just, you know, fully functional and like just have rockin' brain performance. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope I've made, you know, all those points. You can take nootropics every day. You just got to cycle between them, I would say. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. If you have not listened to our podcast, check us out on iTunes. We have an iTunes podcast about nootropics. We're on 009. We did 009 on Alcar. Or no, Noopept. Very awesome. Very long podcast on Noopept nasal spray and everything else about Noopept, side effects and everything. You should check it out. It's really awesome. We're working on number 10 right now. A lot of content, guys, on livecortex.com/blog. Lot of content. I just did a post about how nootropics make me a better entrepreneur. Prior to that, I did a long post about the mechanisms of uridine monophosphate and its efficacy as a nootropic, and there is a contingent of other information. If you look in the right-hand side of the sidebar on the blog, it's just nootropic topics, and every nootropic in the book, you know, with topics, and click on them, you'll find an article about that nootropic. So I'm trying to make this livecortex.com like the resource for all things mechanisms, all things anecdotal, all things science, all things other about nootropics. Thanks for watching.